Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
Yo, it's your boy, the odd guy himself, Malik King Scott.
Hi, I'm Charlie Edwards.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 108 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as always by the infamous Mr. Ayaz Sumra. Ayaz, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good, Joey. How are you?
Very good, my friend, very good. Right, let's jump straight into things. Let's go straight forward with the reviewing from last week. There's a fight to mention that took place last Thursday. That fight happened over in the Casino del Sol in Tucson, Arizona, USA. Just one fight to mention on that bill. Friend of the show, undefeated prospect, Hector Tanajara. He moved to 11-0, a unanimous decision over 8 rounds against Jesus Serrano, who was 17-4 with 2 draws. So Hector Tanajara now 11-0, and Jesus Serrano now 17-5 with 2 draws. One thing I will mention about this actual fight here. There was a fight before the fight, which actually included Hector Tanajara's trainer, which is Robert Garcia, the obviously the former world champion in his own right, the brother of Mikey Garcia. He got into some kind of fight, I think maybe in a hotel foyer or something before the fight, and the police were were detaining him. There was a video going round of him, being arrested by the police, which was quite mad. I think he perhaps maybe hit like some kind of, I don't know, I think he was like a fan or something that shouted something out. I think he may have hit him. Not quite sure, but all the very best to those guys. I like Robert Garcia. It must have been for a good reason anyway. Moving over now to Russia at the Trade Union Sport Palace in Nagorny, if I'm not mistaken. One fight to mention on this bill. Andrei Sorokin, 13-0, actually picked up a win against Ricardo Mayorga. This one was for the vacant WBA International Super-Middleweight title. Now, obviously, I've said before, Ricardo Mayorga's a complete nutcase. 32-9 with 1 draw going in. It was a retirement after 9 rounds. Ricardo Mayorga actually retired in the fight due to an injury. I haven't seen that fight at all, but Mayorga always brings some kind of unpredictability. I was quite surprised here that he actually made it to the 9th round, because he's he definitely doesn't live the life up at super middleweight now. He's age 44 looking at it, it just seems like he's been around forever, really. I'm going to try to look at the scorecards. Yeah, the scorecards, he was actually losing, I think, almost every round. So, Mayorga, a big loss for him there. Hopefully he decides to hang them up, but I very much doubt it. I think he's in the need of a little bit of cash, and what better way for him. Moving over now to Germany and Munich. A couple fights on this bill. Nope, just the one. Christina Hammer, the female world champion, she's now 22-0 because she extended her winning record with a KO in round 4 against Gifty Amanua Ankara, who was 7-4 with 1 draw, now 7-5 with 1 draw. Also, Christina Hammer successfully defends her WBC and WBO World Female Middleweight titles, so all the very best to her. Moving over now to the Gasmart Stadium in Tijuana, Mexico. 1 fight, or 2 fights actually on this bill. Luis Neri, the former world champion that got caught for drugs and then, had his belt stripped of him, but then miraculously he's back in the ring only 3 months later since failing the drug test. Nobody quite knows what's going on with that. Certainly very strange. He moved to 25-0. He got a win over Arthur Villanueva, who I said before, Villanueva lost in his last fight, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was his last fight, but he lost to Zolani Tete. So, it was a bit of a stern test here for Luis Neri, and he actually found himself on the canvas, Luis Neri, in round 4. So that was a bit of a shock, but ultimately the TKO came in favour of Neri in the 6th round. So he's 25-0. And Arthur Villanueva now 31-3. No disgrace losing the 2 fights he's lost this year, though. Also on that bill, Jose Zepeda, 27-1, moved to 28-1. A TKO in round 6 for him against Abner Lopez, who was 25-7, now 25-1. 25-8. Moving over to another part of Mexico, former world champion Johnny Gonzalez. The man's had like 75 fights now. Yeah, 75 fights exactly. He defended his WBC Latino super featherweight title against Irving Berry, who was 23-6, now 23-7 with 2 draws. So Johnny Gonzalez, 65-10, his record now. Impressive. Moving over now to Monte Carlo, though, this Sky Sports card. Obviously, this one was on Saturday night. I'm going to start with the undercard. Harlem Eubank moved to 3-0. Very sketchy, this one. He took on a man called Abubakar Bechelegem, who was 12-8 with 1 draw. Now, this fight here, the opponent, I'm not going to say his name again, but Eubank's opponent here was actually, he landed a good shot. I think it was maybe a right hook on Harlem Eubank, and Harlem Eubank actually touched down. It was a proper knockdown, but it wasn't ruled. And what happened there was, it was only a 4-rounder, so obviously it would have been a 10-8 round. Let's just say it was in the first round for argument's sake, just to explain this to people that may not know. It'd be a 10-8 round, so going into the last 3 rounds, Harlem Eubank would be 2 points down, so he'd need to win all 3 to win it. He actually ended up winning a split decision over 4 rounds, so obviously no judge actually scored the knockdown, because you can't, because the referee, he didn't rule it as a knockdown. So what basically happened here is, in a nutshell, Harlem Eubank was very, very lucky there to not get a loss. I mean, he's being trained by Adam Booth. He hasn't really, I think, gelled too much. If you look at the way he fights, he doesn't look like the typical Adam Booth fighter. I think there's a lot of work to be done there. But listen, he's a work in progress. He's only starting out. He's only 2-0. This guy that he fought's had over 20 fights. So, there was a lot of inexperience on the side of Harlem Eubank, but for me, he should have lost that fight, really, and I think a lot of people echo those sentiments. If that knockdown was counted, he would have lost, so very unfortunate there. I'm sure the journeyman will be kicking himself, but listen, I'm sure he got paid a decent little check. Also on the bill, Scott Quigg, 33-1 with 2 draws, took on Oleg Yefimовich, 29-2 with 1 draw. Scott Quigg, Ayaz, I mean, some people knock him, some people like him. I mean, for me, he's not really got the most fan-friendly style. I don't think it was a great fight. What I will say, though, is Yefimовich had never been stopped, and to get the stoppage as early as the 6th round was quite impressive, I will say that. So the result was good, but the fight itself, I didn't really think too much of it. Yefimовich, he was tough to some degree, but, Quigg just had too much from him on the night, simple as that. Quigg now 34-1 with 2 draws, and Yefimовich 29-3 with 1 draw. He's finally been stopped for the first time. What did you make of that Quigg fight? Has anything to add to that at all?
Well done to Quigg. He's obviously won the fight by a stoppage in the 6th round. He performed very well. His trainer Freddie Roach wasn't in the corner because he's training Miguel Cotto for his final fight against Adam Ali. He's mandatory for the winner of the Abner Mares versus Santa Cruz fight. Is that fight really going to happen? Personally, I don't think Santa Cruz or Abner Mares will want to come to UK to fight him. So I reckon if that fight happens, I reckon Quigg is going to move to fight in America for that fight.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be too much of a big deal for him. Obviously, he's based now in America, as you said there, with Freddie Roach. So that'll suit Freddie Roach a little bit better. He'll be able to make the corner for that, and that's a fight that I reckon probably will happen. It's a tough fight. Either one of those guys is a very, very tough fight for Quigg. But, he's winning, so that's the most important thing. We actually predicted on that one as well, as I actually went with Quigg to win on points, simply because I don't think Quigg's the biggest puncher, and this guy had never been stopped. But you went against that, and so did our listeners, so you've both racked up a point there. So congratulations to you, Ayaz, and the listeners for predicting correctly that Quigg would get the stoppage. Moving up the bill once again, Ajit Kabayel, 16-0, defended successfully his EBU heavyweight title against Derek Chisora. It was a majority decision over 12 rounds. Boy, oh boy, Derek Chisora now 27-8. His record's just diminishing, as time goes on. But simply, he's just a guy that just needs one win. I feel to bounce back into the picture. I think someone said that. I can't remember who, but that is quite an accurate statement. He's the kind of guy that he'll have one win and then he's right back at it. He's very much a gatekeeper, I think, Derek Chisora. But I tell you what, Ajit Kabayel, I mean, he was boxing and moving, and I weren't sure he was going to be able to do it for the full 12 rounds. But I've got to say, I'm not sure if I said it on last week's show, but I actually, a little bit of me thought that Caballero might be able to win on points. I knew he wouldn't be able to stop Del Boy, but I thought, you know what, he might win this on points. And I actually put a little bet on, and it happened. So I was happy with that, but I didn't predict it on here because you, Ayaz, went with Chisora to win by knockout, and so did our listeners. So I was a little bit kind of playing it safe, and I thought, nope, Chisora's going to win on points, but of course that didn't happen. So Caballero, I should have gone with him instinctively, but I didn't. But yeah, back to the fight. You know, he was boxing and moving. He showed some decent feet. I mean, Del Boy's a little bit slow now, but you know, he stuck to a game plan. He did it very well. You know, his fighting was very effective. He landed a good amount of shots. He was mixing it up a little bit. Some body shots were slowing Del down over the distance. You know, Chisora kind of turned it on in the last few rounds. I think maybe he might have. I feel like he had a little bit left in the tank, but he just wasn't really able to empty it all. It was quite weird. It was a bit of a strange performance by Del. He was kind of left a little bit wanting, I feel, parts of that fight. You know, just plodding forward, and you know, he just wasn't fighting very well, Del Boy. I mean, he just got outworked pretty much. I mean, he didn't land much, but the fight itself was quite boring because, you know, this guy didn't really want to stand and engage too much, and when he did, it was only for a couple of seconds, and he'd move out. So smart game plan fighting, but not really the most capturing kind of fight for, you know, for fans watching on. Do you want to add anything to that, Ayaz, at all, the Del Boy fight, or should we move on?
Well, I'm just going to add one thing to say on this. Well, Del Boy, he's lost his fighting now. He's lost to Helenius. He's lost to Pulev. This fight, if Chisora won, it would have been made the Dillian White fight bigger. Now, with him losing that fight, it decreases the value of the Dillian White fight. For me, I reckon Chisora's been around boxing for time now. Is it time for him to pack the gloves? Is the White fight really going to happen? I don't think the White fight's value as big it is as much anymore. So we'll see what happens in the future for the White fight.
Do you know what? You've just said that, Ayaz, and that's actually just reminded me something, and I was tweeting about this the other day. I actually think, and you know, the listeners can hear this, this is my theory about this. I think that when they matched Dillian White against Derek Chisora, they were super confident that White would beat Chisora easily, and so was I. I didn't think he'd stop him, but I did bet on Dillian White to win by a decision, and it was razor tight when it come down to it. So I think that they kind of maybe were a little bit shocked at how, I don't want to say that Derek exposed Dillian White, but what I will say is I think they were shocked at how close and competitive the fight was afterwards. And I think that in order to secure Dillian White a big fight, and in order for him to make some big money, he cannot afford to lose to Derek Chisora, who, as I said, is a bit of a gatekeeper. You know, he simply couldn't afford to lose to him. So I didn't actually think that they would want that rematch, especially because he's so highly ranked with the WBC, Dillian White. So I thought that they'd really try and kind of run away from that. And I actually had a feeling going in, when I looked at this guy's record, no one knows who he is, but he's 16-0 European champion. You looked at his record and he actually beat some decent-ish guys, you know, and most of them by knockout. So, you know, when I saw that, I thought, do you know what? He could lose this fight to a no-name, if you like, over here anyway. And that would completely stop people calling for this fight, because everybody's calling for that fight, and that's exactly what happened. So now they've kind of got over that chapter without even having a second fight. Dillian White, he didn't look good in his last fight against that guy, Robert Helenius. He looked awful, to be honest, but he got the win. Chisora got the loss. So now no one wants to see those guys fight, because it was such, you know, underperforming in both of the two fights that they had here against their respective opponents, that no one wants to see the rematch now. So it's actually worked out good for Dillian White, because now, you know, he's going to probably end up getting a shot at Deontay Wilder, especially on the back of how he looked, you know. So I think that he's going to probably get a big name, you know, a big money fight / a big name fight next, Dillian White. And I think the Chisora thing's definitely put to bed now. No one wants to see that. And they can't afford rematching him and possibly losing. They do not need that to happen. Because if that happens, you know, their careers, well, Dillian White's career, I think, will be in tatters, really. And, you know, Chisora, I mean, who would want to fight him? If you lose to him, your career's in trouble. And if you beat him, then, yeah, it looks good. But he's a hard man to beat. He's a hard man to stop. So, yeah, it's a funny one, that one. But no, I don't think the rematch happens now. And I think that Eddie Hearn, even though he did try and say he wanted that fight, really and truly, you don't want to be putting your man in there against somebody who he could lose to, especially someone who's now got 8 losses. So let's have it right. I don't think that they wanted that fight at all. But anyway, moving up the card once again, Dimitri Bivol, 11-0. Put his WBA World Light Heavyweight title on the line against Trent Broadhurst. Trent Broadhurst was actually saying, it was ironic he was saying it, but before the fight he was saying that this guy is talking about he's got big power. He hasn't really, you know, knocked anybody out of note. That's what he said. Well, he knocked him out. And I think that he shocked Trent Broadhurst big time. It was a first round knockout, as it simply was the last punch of the round as well. It was just as every knockout would be, but I mean, like, it was in the last second of the round, wasn't it? Literally just before the bell come in, bang, he was out, and that was it. You know, he just got flattened. The punch didn't really look like it was it had too much weight behind it. It was just a straight right, straight down the pipe between the guard, and bang, that was his lights out. And you know, it was really impressive. I think that Bivol would have looked really good on TV there in front of the fans that, you know, that watched it. And I think that he is potentially a big star in the light heavyweight division. But that's another fight there where Bivol was picked to knock out his opponent by me and the listeners, but you guys went with Bivol on points. You couldn't be too much further from reality there. We got the points, me and the listeners, so congrats to us. But what did you make of that fight, Ayaz? Explosive stuff there from Bivol.
Oh, what a right hand from him. That's all I gotta say. What a right hand. But I'll tell you one thing. He's a future. He's going to be a very, very good fighter in the future. Yeah,
I agree totally. And now the main event, which was... It was quite kind of strange because it was actually the first fight on TV. Jamie McDonnell defending his WBA World Bantamweight title against Liborio Solis in the rematch. Jamie McDonnell going in with a record of 29-2 with 1 draw, and Liborio Solis 25-5 with 1 draw. Firstly, I mean, I actually thought, I've got to be honest, I like Jamie McDonnell, I like Dave Coldwell and the team, but I thought that Jamie McDonnell probably lost the first 2 rounds, maybe. I think I gave one of them a 10-10. Don't hate me too much about that, but one of them, I think it was maybe the first round was quite hard to score. The second round I thought was quite clear for Solis. Some people actually don't agree with that, but I think Solis was really pressing the action early. You know, he came with some good tactics, but for me, I think, even though, of course, we all know that there was a head clash and, you know, the cut was so bad that it actually had to be a no decision in the 3rd round, in a way, because of the bad start that Jamie McDonnell had, I think that it did him a little bit of a favour, you know. I actually think, you know, he still gets paid. You know, he didn't defend it, so to speak, but he goes home with the belt. And, you know, now he's really kind of tested himself for a couple of rounds and thought, you know what? Actually, I need to move up in weight. So that's what he's saying now. He's now going to be moving up in weight, I think. And obviously he'll be giving up that belt. So in a way, he's found out that he cannot be fighting at that weight for any longer. And he hasn't had to take a loss to realise that. But I feel very bad for him, of course, because he was out the ring for so long. And, you know, he's been killing himself to make the weight. And it was all to really just kind of prove people wrong, kind of prove people that he is much better than Solis. And, you know, he wanted to beat him clearly this time. It was just really, the competitor in him. He could have moved up ages ago. No one would have had any qualms about it. But he's tried to prove, you know, the critics wrong and the doubters wrong and the haters wrong. But unfortunately, due to a head clash, it was all for nothing. So, you know, he still gets paid. He still goes home with a belt. But he won't be happy. But I think, really and truly, being a fan of his, I do think that the head clash kind of did him a little bit of a favour, in my honest opinion. I think over the course of the rounds, I know he's got a great engine, but killing yourself to make the weight. Sometimes you don't really perform in those later rounds, so it was a little bit risky after the start he had, in my opinion, was a bit too slow. But credit to Jamie McDonnell. It's good to see him in the ring once again, but it was just a shame it ended in the way it did. Moving over from that one, Ayaz from Monte Carlo, moving over now to the BT Convention Centre in Liverpool, Merseyside. I'm going to try to go through this a little bit quicker. Jack Armfield, 24-2, took on that tough journeyman called Adam Jones, who I've been raving about for ages. Adam Jones now 6-26 with 5 draws. Did he get stopped? Boy, oh boy, of course he didn't. He got a points loss, Adam Jones. He never gets stopped. He's never been stopped. He's very rarely looked like he's been in trouble, to be honest. That guy's tough as nails. Moving over now to the Buckhead Fight Club in Georgia, USA. One fight to mention on this bill. Devin Haney, the prospect, moved to 18-0, a TKO in round 5 of 6 against Hamza Sepuo, who is now 14-9. Moving over now to the Barclays Center, Brooklyn, USA. This is, of course, the big Deontay Wilder bill. Really good card, this, by the way. I'm going to start with a fight that wasn't televised. Lemieux Thomas, the former foe of Dave Allen. Is the rematch going to be happening on the Bellew undercard? Nobody seems to know. It was supposed to happen on the Joshua undercard, and he went missing, and I've heard the conspiracy theories behind that. Anyways, Lemieux Thomas, what can we say about this? I mean, I didn't see the fight, but from what I've seen, it was a super, super close fight. I think he only literally scraped it by like a point against a guy who had a record of 12-2. So a similar kind of record of Dave Allen, but obviously Dave Allen's took on the likes of Dillian White, the likes of Luis Ortiz. So, Lemieux Thomas, that's not a really good win there for him. He's now 22-4, and his opponent, Ed Fountain, is 12-3. Moving up the bill, Shawnee Monaghan, he come back after being knocked out, and he picked up a unanimous decision over 8 rounds against Everett Bravo. Everett Bravo now 23-7 with 1 draw. Shawnee Monaghan 29-1 inside 30 fights. Also on this bill, Amanda Serrano 33-1 with 1 draw. Former world champion, of course. She took on Marilyn Hernandez 26-10, and Hernandez was down 3 times in the first round, so a brutal first round knockout there for Amanda Serrano. Credit to her. Also on the bill, fighting for one of Terence Crawford's vacated world titles, the IBF World Super Lightweight title was on the line. Sergei Lipinets 12-0 took on Akihiro Kondo 29-6 with 1 draw. It was a unanimous decision over 12 rounds for Sergei Lipinets. Wasn't really the most impressive fight. It was a little bit boring. I was finding it hard to really pay too much attention to it. I was kind of on my phone a lot, really. Also on that bill, we didn't get to see it unfortunately, but both men have been on the show in the past couple of weeks. Dominic Brazil 18-1 took on Eric Molina 26-4. Molina was down in round 8, and then his corner pulled him out after the 8th round, so it was a retirement in his corner, so he didn't want to come out for round 9. Eric Molina didn't really look like he was complaining too much. The knockdown wasn't even heavy, so I'm not quite sure what went on there. Eric Molina came in actually, weighing less than Dominic Brazil. I suppose that's expected, being the shorter guy, but no, Eric Molina gets stopped there. Which is a bit of a shame. I do like Eric Molina, but Dominic Brazil now 19-1, Eric Molina now 26-5. Also on the bill, we got to see this fight. Sean Porter fighting for the vacant WBC silver welterweight title against Adrian Granados. Granados 18-5 with 2 draws, better than his record suggests, and Sean Porter 27-2 with 1 draw. Sean Porter does what he does. I actually like to see him fight. I know some people were quite critical of him. I think he's an all-action fighter. He kind of neglects his boxing skills most of the time. Swarms people. I call him, I think my nickname for him is the little pit bull, because that's the way he fights. He just puts his head down and swings. He's quite reckless. He's quite crude. What I will say about this fight is he actually was boxing more than I've seen him box for quite a while. He was actually showing off some of his boxing skills. Granados is tough as old boots, isn't he? I respect him big time. I really do like Granados, but after the fight, Granados was complaining, saying that he clearly won the fight, and I really found it hard to give him more than 3 rounds, I think. So that was quite comical. In all honesty, I think that Sean Porter won quite clearly. His record now 28-2 with 1 draw, and Granados now 18-6 with 2 draws. Not looking too good for him. And of course, the main event on this bill, Deontay Wilder 38-0 in the rematch against Bermane Stiverne, 25-2 with 1 draw. Of course, these two guys fought for the belt a couple of years back, and since Deontay Wilder beat him over 12 rounds unanimously and showed for the first time his actual boxing skills and his good jab, Deontay Wilder, in the first fight, they were having the rematch, and Deontay Wilder was, a man on a mission, trying to get the knockout, just to be able to say that everybody I've shared a ring with, I've knocked out. It didn't matter that he had to fight Stiverne in 2 different fights to get the knockout, but boy oh boy, he got the knockout, and it was brutal. Of course, the WBC World Heavyweight title was on the line. Stiverne was down 3 times. The first knockdown was pretty strange, because when you actually look at the clock, I think, if I'm not mistaken, there was about 40 seconds left in the first round, so it's ticking down, 40, 39, anyway, bang, he hits Stiverne with a shot that didn't really look like too much. I mean, it got through the guard, but he's got that kind of freakish power, Deontay Wilder, and just before he landed it, he actually punched himself in the chest twice, so a little bit of swagger there. He did that, landed a good shot. I think it was set up by a jab followed by a right hook, and he put him down, and then Stiverne bounced straight back up, and again, there was something like about 25 seconds left in the round now, and I'm thinking, is he going to make it? Is he going to make it? Then he goes down again, pretty much, I think maybe with the first 1 or 2 punches. It was again, the punch didn't look too good. It wasn't a great punch, but he put him down with it, and then he gets back up, and literally there was about 8 or 9 seconds left in the round, and he just completely swarms him. Deontay Wilder landed, the best punch he actually landed was a left uppercut. No one really talked about that, but the left uppercut that he landed when Stiverne was on the ropes was the real punch that caused the damage. It was right underneath the middle of the guard, He kind of dipped his knees and kind of threw it really well, really come underneath the guard and come up with it, push through his feet, bang, straight on the chin, and then I think it was followed maybe by an overhand right. So a little bit clever stuff there from Deontay Wilder. You don't really see him using his shot selection too cleverly. Ayaz, it was a quick fight. I don't want to spend too long talking about it either, because it was over so quickly. What did you make of Deontay Wilder's performance? Obviously, it shocked a lot of people. We got to say, even though Stiverne wasn't in the best shape, we got to give him a lot of credit for a first round knockout on Stiverne. That is quite something.
What can I say? Well done to Deontay Wilder for the first round knockout. Stiverne hasn't fought for 2 years, okay? He came in out of shape. Now, if you look at that fight 2 years ago, that was a different Stiverne. Stiverne was in shape. He was active. He was training. This Stiverne looked like he didn't even... It's like he was called in yesterday. Oh, yeah, you got to fight the next day. It wasn't like... It's like that. But credit to Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder came in light in the weigh-in. Now, this is the thing. Deontay Wilder knocked him out first round. The thing is, with Wilder, yes, he's got a big punch in him, but he swings so much. Now, if you're going to swing against Anthony, with him, it's like if he swings against Anthony Joshua, and just say, for example, Anthony Joshua ducks here, Anthony Joshua's going to hit him with the right hand and knock him out, stop him.
There are big fights out there for him. What makes me laugh, really, Ayaz, is that I've been saying it for the longest time, probably more than any other person's been saying it. I've been saying that the Wilder versus Joshua fight, or Joshua Wilder, which it would actually be called, will be, or was, a 50-50 fight. I even said it, I think, on last week's show. And then I said, in fact, maybe it's a bit of a 60-40 to Joshua, but it's definitely a very, very hard fight to call. The reason being, both men's got power, and, both men can knock the other guy out, but they've both been knocking out complete journeymen, complete bums, not real fighters, and stuff like that. Then Joshua fought Klitschko, and I said, okay, I've got to give him a bit of credit here, even though Klitschko's definitely seen way better days, and all the things that were, stacked against him in that fight, travelling, coming off a loss, coming off a layoff, being older, all those things, not being a champion, being an underdog, and all that stuff that was against Klitschko. It was a good win. And also, of course, the way that Deontay Wilder, the way that Joshua stopped Molina, that was quite impressive. He beat Charles Martin, he's the only man to beat him. That was quite impressive. The Dominic Brazil fight was a really good one. We got to see him really take care of Dominic Brazil in good fashion. Nobody's done that. So those things there are, the best two people that Anthony Joshua's fought is Dominic Brazil and Vladimir Klitschko. And of course, Deontay Wilder's just been knocking over bums. He fought Stavern. He went the distance with him. That was like, his best opponent. Now he's fought Stavern again. And I think that's his best opponent, Ayaz, isn't it, really? Stavern. Would you say that's his best opponent? I think it is.
Yes, I would.
Yeah, so there you go. So for me, I always said it was going to be a close fight. And now, Joshua didn't look too good the other week. And then 7 days later, Deontay Wilder's in the ring. He looks really good against Fat Stavern. And now people are going, whoa, that's a 50-50 fight. And I've been saying it for ages. I mean, I've been saying it. But I actually would favour Joshua. I think you have to. But people were, I've been debating on Twitter the last kind of few days. And people from America, including boxers, I've been arguing with loads of people. They're saying, like, no, Deontay Wilder's the number one guy. If he hits you, you're gone. And I'm like, okay, well, Joshua is the man with the 100% knockout ratio. Deontay Wilder doesn't have that. And one boxer, I'm not going to name him because I like him, but he said, well, we saw Joshua get put down. Deontay Wilder hasn't been put down. And I was saying that being put down doesn't mean anything, but if you actually look down on Deontay Wilder's record, he was put down. People forget, he was put down by a guy who had 17 wins and 20 losses. Okay, so he was put down by him. And the guy wasn't even a puncher. So that says it all. If you're talking about knockdowns, that says it all. This is the way I see it. I actually think that boxing-wise, Joshua's definitely better than Wilder. Definitely more rounded and all those things there. Strength is definitely stronger than Wilder. I think he could perhaps push Wilder back. The only thing about Wilder, I think he is possibly the more athletic, possibly, I would even say he's probably maybe got better feet. I don't think either of them's got great feet. But I definitely think Wilder's got more power, but it doesn't matter because Joshua's got enough power to knock you out anyway. So it's like, the comparison I kind of see, it's like Joshua's got a pistol and Deontay Wilder's got a shotgun. But either of them can shoot and put the other man out. So it doesn't really matter who hits harder because they both knock people out with any shot that they throw. So it doesn't matter who's got the edge on power, really. It just matters who lands and who can get in position to land the shot. Because there's no way that fight goes the distance. But yeah, Deontay Wilder's knockout ratio is 97%. Joshua's is 100%. And of course, Deontay Wilder's fought like 18 or 19 more people or more fights than Joshua has. But if Joshua took on the 19 people that he fought, he would completely obliterate them as well. The only common opponent I think they've both fought is Eric Molina, and we saw Eric Molina wobbled Deontay Wilder, hurt him a few times in that fight, and Joshua completely just kept him on the ropes for 3 rounds, pounding at him, and it was a pathetic performance that night from Eric Molina. I think he'd be the first to admit that. Well, he did. He said it was, I mean, he had a few reasons why last week when we spoke to him, but it was what it was. Anyways, going back on that fight just quickly, I forgot to say the Eric Molina and Brazil fight. The listeners and you, Ayaz, both went with Brazil to win by points. I went with Brazil by knockout. So of course it was a retirement which goes down as a stoppage. So I picked up a point there, much needed point there as well. And the Wilder fight, everybody went with Wilder by knockout. So me, you and the listeners, so we all get a point there. So the scores at the moment are me on 11. I've caught you up, Ayaz. You're also on 11, but in the lead, the listeners with 12. So it really is hotting up. We really need to pull some points back. But that's really it for the Barclays Centre. Moving over now to the final card to mention from last week. We're going to talk about this one in the Silver Gun Arena. The son of former heavyweight world champion Hasim Rahman Jr. I told a story on last week's show about his opponent actually running out the venue. Well, he finally got a man to fight him. The guy's name was James Jones. He was 4-11. Of course, Hasim Rahman Jr. only 2-0, and he made light work of him. He got him out in the first round via TKO. If I'm not mistaken, that's 3 first-round knockouts now for Hasim Rahman Jr. Really exciting young prospect, so we will look out for him, of course. But just before we wrap up part 1, of course, there's one last thing to do, and that is to welcome guest number 1. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the super-middleweight contender. It's the mama's boy, Mr. Denis Douglin. Dennis, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, man. Thank you.
Hey, it's my pleasure, sir. So, Dennis, obviously the British fight fans know who you are. Most of us know you best for fighting George Groves back in 2014. But I want to rewind a little bit. Obviously, your nickname, the Mama's Boys, because your mother is your trainer. How did that first come around? Most mothers hate their sons being in boxing, usually.
Well, it started when I was about 8 years old. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I was 8 years old. I got into a street fight. I didn't do too well, and she called me a punk. And at the time, she was boxing. So she made me come to the gym with her and start training. So she wasn't my original trainer at first. I had another guy that was working with me. And then when I came home, she would work with me in the house on stuff that she thought I did wrong in the gym. And it kept good. I'm growing from there. And by the time I got around 13, it was kind of known that she was helping me a little bit. And I was a mama's boy because I was always with my mother in the gym. So everyone started calling me mama's boy as a joke. And I went to a regional tournament in the amateurs, and I put Mama's Boy on my shorts as a joke. And she wasn't even in my corner for the fight, but I put Mama's Boy on my shorts, and I won the tournament. And everybody was like, "Oh, that Mama's Boy kid could fight." And then it just became like a name. And then she took over training me, and it just went from there.
So I've got to ask you this now: have you ever sparred your mum?
Yes, we used to spar all the time.
Did she used to beat you up?
She used to beat yeah, she used to beat me up bad when I was little, up until I was about 14. Then I started putting hands on her.
Oh, that's excellent, man. That's excellent. So obviously your record at the moment, Dennis, it stands at 20 wins and 5 losses. You've shared the ring with the likes of George Groves, as we mentioned, Jamel Charlo, Stephen Martinez, David Benavidez. Who would you say is the best fighter out of all those guys there?
I would go with Jamel Charlo. I would say he's probably the best fighter I fought so far.
Yeah, and I remember when you fought him, it was a few years ago now. He's actually excelled. He's become even better than he was then. He's
I agree. I didn't think he was a big puncher like that. Granted, he stopped me, and it was with a straight right hand that I ran into. But I was hit with a couple of shots before that. Again, a lot of those fights, the names you mentioned, I wasn't in good shape for those fights because I took the fights in short notice and stuff like that. So when I got hit by him in the first round, I didn't think he was such a big puncher, but he had pop back then, and now he's punching even harder, I think. So I think he's probably the best fighter I've fought so far.
Yeah, he's a real name on the world scene now, him and his twin brother. I want to ask you about your last fight. Obviously, you took on David Benavidez. He's been on this show a couple months ago, just before he won the world title. Now, that fight from now was 15 months ago. Why has there been such a long layoff, Dennis?
It's just how the boxing game goes, man. Like I said, Alman Heyman is my mentor, and he's a busy man. I mean, there's a lot of fighters over here. So it's pretty much even if you're winning, you're only fighting like twice a year, 3 times a year max. So if you lose, you put yourself in that position where they make you sit down. It's unfortunate. So I just gotta make sure I don't lose anymore because I know how the game goes. If you lose, they move on to the next big thing, the next better thing.
Yeah, because I thought you might say something like you've been nursing an injury, but you've been completely fine.
No, I've been training. People don't even know this. Right after my David Benavidez fight, I went immediately. Maybe like 3 weeks later, I went to Canada and was training with David Lemieux, helping him get ready for the Southpaw. And then I've been training nonstop from that time, hoping because I had a couple of fights come in and fall through. So I've been hoping and training, waiting for a fight. It's nothing to do with me at all, just with the politics of boxing.
Okay, I see. So you're back in camp now, obviously, for your fight against Anthony Dirrell on November 17th in his hometown of Flint, Michigan. Firstly, how well do you rate Anthony Dirrell as a fighter, Dennis?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I'll put Anthony at like a 7. He's a 7.
Do you know much about him as a fighter?
I don't. I mean, I watched him fight. Obviously, he's a former world champion. So as much as I say he's a 7, you can't take anything away from someone who's made it to the top of the sport in their division. So he's a former world champion, super tough, super competitive guy. I know he's coming to win. It's in his hometown. I know he's super excited to fight back in Flint. So I'm not underestimating him at all. I'm not taking this fight lightly. I don't think, he's going to be a walkover. He's going to be just as tough as the David Benavidez and the Charlos and the George Groves. I know that this fight is a big fight for me. But I truly think me being in the shape that I'm in right now and being able to get this fight with a full camp notice, I don't see myself losing, to be honest with you.
And I remember when Andre Dirrell took on James DeGale, I remember that the Dirrell brothers, they had some guy in their camp who came to all like the media things, like the public workouts and the press conferences, and they've got a guy in their camp who they pay, who's part of their entourage, who just makes these dog noises all the time. I don't know if you know about that, but I'm sure you'll see him at the press conference. He just goes like, oh, and all these weird things. So watch out for that one. Don't let them surprise you with that. What I will say, I can see looking at Anthony's record. I'd imagine he's been sparring some southpaws, because he hasn't actually fought a southpaw for coming up 6 years now. And that fight against whatever southpaw it was, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the fight only went 4 rounds. It was stopped due to an injury, a shoulder injury on his opponent. So that's good news for you. He hasn't fought a southpaw for that long. So perhaps if you if you can unsettle him early, this that'd be a great thing for you.
Yeah, definitely. I don't really think, even if he has experience with southpaws, that would be an issue, because, like I said, I really think he's, not to say anything negative towards him, but I think he's really basic. He's a come forward or a sit back kind of guy. He doesn't use his feet too much. He likes to fight. He's a warrior. So I'm looking for an in shape Anthony Dirrell, but I'm not expecting any type of fancy footwork or some adjustments that he's made because I'm left-handed. He's pretty much up and down, in my opinion. But I will be prepared for whatever he does. If he wants to box and run around the ring, I've had that in this camp. If he wants to stand there and fight me, I've had that in my camp. So whatever he brings to the table, we're prepared for it.
And of course, this fight's going to be shown on Fox in the USA. It's going to be the main event. Are you looking forward to being back on a big stage like this? I bet you've missed it.
Of course, yes. I feel like that's where I deserve to be. Not record-wise, but I deserve to be that. Just knowing my skill set and my personality and presence, I need to be on the main stage. So now I just got to win and show the world that that's where I belong. But I'm 100% a main event kind of fighter, so I'm happy to be back where I belong.
And I want to ask you, what are you making of this Super-Middleweight World Boxing Super Series tournament? Have you been paying attention to that?
Yeah, I'm actually super interested in it. I think it's great so far. I was in camp with Jamie Cox, not sparring with him, but me and Jamie Cox were both in Canelo's camp for when he fought James Kirkland. So I had a good relationship with Jamie Cox. So I was surprised to see George Groves take him out the way he did. And I'm really interested in the Chris Eubanks-George Groves matchup, because I think Chris Eubanks is a better fighter, but the weight at 168, that might be a problem. So I'm excited to see what happens in January.
Yeah, that will be a good one. Talking about that Groves-Cox fight, I was at that the other week. It was, it was very surprising. It was a brutal body shot that George Groves delivered that night. I want to ask you. Obviously, there's a few fights left in it. We're not quite sure who's going to end up in the final. But who do you see winning that whole tournament at super middleweight?
In my opinion, the winner of Chris Eubanks, George Groves, wins the entire tournament. I think this fight for me, not writing off any other fighters, but in my opinion, this fight is the finals. Whoever wins this fight, in my opinion, if they take it very seriously, they're going to win the whole thing.
So you believe that the winner of that fight should beat the winner of Callum Smith and Jurgen Bremer, yeah?
Oh, you know what? I totally forgot Callum Smith was in it. You know what? Let me take that back, because Callum Smith is really good. So you know what? Let me take that back. Yeah, I'm interested in seeing either one of those guys match up against Callum Smith. I can't call it. I've only seen Callum Smith fight 2 times, so it's not enough for me to really have a big opinion of him. I've been in the ring with Chris Eubanks a couple of times, and I fought George Groves, so I know them fairly well. But from what I've seen of Callum Smith, he looks really good. So it should be a good. I think he's obviously going to be in the finals, and then the winner of George Groves and Eubanks, that should be a good matchup.
Who do you see winning that one between Groves and Eubank, by the way?
If he makes weight the right way and he's strong and he's as good as he was, as strong as he was at 160, I'm going to lean towards Chris Eubanks. But it's similar to what George Groves said about Jamie Cox. This isn't your weight class, so you may not be able to handle that power and him leaning on you and stuff like that. So, because I thought Jamie Cox could beat George Groves, but you saw he couldn't take. That was a great body shot that was landed. It could be a similar situation. But I'm going to lean towards Chris Eubanks.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are saying that. Should be interesting anyway. I want to ask you also, Dennis, I wanted to ask you maybe some of the big names that you've sparred. I know that there was a little bit of American interest in this tournament. We had Rob Brandt in there. We didn't really know too much about him. Have you shared the ring with him or any other big names at all?
No, Rob Brandt, no, I haven't. And as far as Have I shared the ring with super middleweights? Is that the question?
Yeah, like maybe the Jesse Harts of this world.
Me and Jesse Hart actually fought in the amateurs. I mean, we haven't sparred since then, but we fought before in the amateurs. And then I've been in the ring with I helped Badu get ready for his fight before he moved up. So Badu was another guy, big name as far as super middleweights. Who else out here would be considered a big name? I think that would probably be as far as big super middleweights I've sparred.
Okay, no, it's fair enough. It's fair enough. Okay, moving on to another question now. I wasn't actually going to ask you this, but now that you said that you was in Canada with David Lemieux, I want to ask you, how do you see his upcoming fight, of course, for the world title against Britain's very own Billy Joe Saunders? It's a really good matchup. It seems like 2017 has just been a perfect year for boxing.
No, I agree 100%. I think that's a great fight. I'm leaning to, again, I'm not too familiar with Billy Joe, but I'm going to lean towards David Lemieux because I've been to camp with him. I've watched his work ethic. I love it. His trainer's a great trainer. I think that they have the right mentality going into this fight. I'm leaning towards David Lemieux for this. I like his power. I like the way he trains. I like the adjustments he makes. Everything.
Yeah, it should be a good fight. Like I say, he's got that one-punch knockout power. Billy Joe Saunders,
he definitely does.
Billy Joe Saunders, obviously the only man to beat Chris Eubank Jr. so far as well. So he's a really good technical boxer. Who would you say is the best super middleweight right now in the world? Most people would say it's probably out of Gilberto Ramirez and James Douglin. Who do you see being the best guy?
I would say Dennis the Mama's Boy Douglin, and then after him, I will put I think Gilberto really impressed me with his fight against Jesse Hart. I wasn't expecting him to be so tenacious, so I think he's really good. And then I would say James Douglin as well. James Douglin is looking really good. Although he did lose, in my opinion, to Badou Jack. He lost that fight, but he's a great super middleweight. So I think super middleweight, and middleweight is a really stacked division. So you're gonna see some top guys all over.
Yeah, two great divisions. And
so me beating Anthony Dirrell puts me finally back in that position where I can fight these guys, and that's what I want to do. I want to fight the best in my division. I don't want to be the kind of guy that gets a title that's vacant or anything. I want to be the champion and become a world champion. I want to fight the tough guys, top guys. I have the belief in myself that I'm one of the best in the weight class, but obviously the world doesn't know that. So to them, I probably sound crazy, but I just want to put my skills on display next week and show that I'm up there with all these guys.
See, it's a mad situation because obviously the WBC, when the title was vacant and it was supposed to be up for grabs between Callum Smith and Anthony Dirrell, everybody pulled out, everybody was injured, and in the end, obviously David Benavidez, I think he was ranked like number 7. He ended up taking on Gavril, who was ranked like maybe number 11 or something like that. And obviously, if you'd been more active, you'd have probably been in that top 15. You'd have probably got the call,
I agree 100%. It's just all about inactivity. But and I think honestly, the Callum Smith and Anthony Dirrell thing, I think it had a lot to do with Anthony Dirrell I think him being afraid, to be honest with you, because he pulled out of a fight with Callum Smith and David Benavidez, but he took the fight with me because in his eyes, I'm the easier fight. So I think that's what that was about.
Yeah, it's up to you to prove him wrong, of course. Coming down to the final couple of questions now, Dennis. I like to ask this question to all the boxers that we speak to from overseas. It's a little bit of a question where I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Who would you say is your favourite UK fighter from any era? It can be somebody who's retired years ago or still active, any era.
My favorite UK fighter from any era? I'm going to go with Amir Khan, honestly, which is probably not popular answer, but I love Amir Khan. I love Amir Khan's style, his mouth, his hands. He's fast. He doesn't have the best chin, but skill-wise, I think Amir Khan is great. I like watching him fight, so I'm gonna go with Amir Khan.
Yeah, I think we've probably had that a couple of times. I mean, it's probably not one of the most popular ones. I mean, in my opinion, a lot of people over here, he's kind of like, people love him or people hate him a little bit over here. It's a shame.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah,
he's got like the biggest set of balls in boxing. He really does.
Yeah, definitely. But I like that. I like that too. And I'm realizing that a lot of UK fighters are like that because the fact that he moved up to fight Canelo and the fact that what's the other guy's name that moved up to fight Triple G? You guys over there, Kell Brook, exactly. Like they got some balls on them. You gotta respect that in the sport that we're in. Everyone's too friendly. Everybody wants to be friends, but over in UK, man, they're fighting. So I take my hat off to those guys.
And I just want to give you an opportunity, really, to send out a message to your UK fans. I know that obviously you've got a little fan base over here from when you fought George Groves. I'm sure that you've got British fight fans keeping up with you. What's your message to those guys, Dennis?
I just want to say thank you to those guys. They still hit me up on Twitter and Facebook, and actually when I'm fighting again or when I'm coming back over there, and I really appreciate it. I don't think my performance against George Groves was my best performance, but I appreciate that a lot of fight fans saw the potential inside me and continue to follow me and support me. So just thank you guys, and look out for me. I'm fighting next Friday, and after I win this fight, hopefully I'm back over there sometime to fight somebody.
Yeah, we've got a lot of names. We've got a lot of names in this division, so I'm sure there can be
many a lot of big names.
Yeah, many fights can be made hopefully down the line. And just before we let you go, please give us your social media handles. Where can people follow you on Twitter and Instagram if they're not already following?
If you're not following me already, the Twitter and Instagram handle is the same thing as the Mama's Boy. It's a DAMOMMASBOY. So follow me out on that. And on Facebook, it's just Denis Douglin.
Excellent. So everybody head over to social media and get following. Okay, listen, Dennis, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you this week. Thank you so much for your time. Best of luck for November the 17th, and we'll catch up sometime afterwards, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the preview part, but as always, we go over to Ayaz before we get into the preview, and with the latest news. Ayaz.
There's only one news for this week, and that is that Alexander Povetkin will return to the ring and fight Christian Hammer on the 15th of December.
Yeah, I think this is a final eliminator, if I'm not mistaken. I think the winner will be mandatory in one of the sanctioning bodies for Joshua's title. I think I think the winner will be in mandatory position to fight Joshua, if I'm not mistaken. Is there a belt on the line for that, Ayaz?
So he'll be defending the WBO International Heavyweight title.
Okay, so he's moving up the WBO rankings, yeah. No, I mean, it's a decent fight, I suppose. Povetkin, as long as he's clean, I want him in the sport. I think Povetkin, skill-wise and stuff like that, he's a good fighter, you know what I mean? He was Olympic gold medalist, he's been a good pro. The only loss coming to Klitschko, he didn't look great that night. Klitschko kind of kept him behind the jab and was very clever that night. It was a very impressive version of Klitschko that night, actually. You wonder what would happen if Joshua was in against that version of Klitschko. No, I mean, I'd like to see him back in the ring. I mean, when you actually look at the current heavyweight division, the guys in the rankings, I mean, who do you really want Joshua to fight? If he's not unifying against Parker and he's not unifying against Deontay Wilder, when you really look at it, for me, the two guys that I'd probably like to see him fight is either Pulev or Povetkin. Those guys, I think, offer the biggest test against him at the moment. So, hopefully we see Povetkin win that fight, and which I think he will. I think Christian Hammer's not... I mean, he's good. He's good. Like, I remember Tyson Fury beating him up properly, but he's actually a decent fighter. But I don't think he's too great against the big, tall guys in the division, Hammer, but he won't have this problem with Povetkin. So, should be decent. Hopefully it's a good fight. Hopefully Povetkin's clean, and hopefully he will fight Joshua sometime next year. So, exciting stuff, I suppose, for December 15th. It's going to be a good December, actually. Not just Christmas, but, Father Christmas is delivering in the boxing world as well. That's it for the news, Ayaz, yeah?
Yep, that's it for the news.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving over now to a fight happening this weekend at the Royal Highland Centre in Edinburgh, Scotland, United Kingdom. This one, of course, going to be live on Channel 5. It is a Cyclones promotion card. What's on the undercard? Let's have a little look here. Chantel Cameron, 3-0, fights for the vacant IBO Intercontinental Female Lightweight title against Edith Ramos, who's 6-1 with one draw. That's a 10 2-minute round contest. Also on that bill, really and truly, the main event. In fact, I'm going to give a little shout out here to the co-main event, or the chief support. Jason Easton, 10-0, takes on Joseph Zaradnik, who's 9-0. That one's for the IBO Intercontinental Super Lightweight title also. Yeah, so Jason Easton being the champion, but that's good there to see 2 unbeaten fighters on that bill. McGregor's also on this bill as well. It's not Conor McGregor, it's a man called Lee McGregor making his debut in a 4-rounder. And the main event, Josh Taylor 10-0, puts his WBC silver super lightweight title on the line against former world champion Miguel Vasquez. Miguel Vasquez 39-5. What I will say about this, I'm going to give you a couple of strange facts about Vasquez. Now, I did say these when the fight got made, but I'd like to just remind our listeners. So if we talk about Vasquez here, he fought Canelo in his debut. Yeah, and he lost a split decision, so it was really, really close. And then he went on an 18-fight win streak before running into Tim Bradley. Tim Bradley served him up a loss there unanimously. After that, he put together 3 wins back-to-back before rematching Canelo. And on the undercard, when he took on Canelo, 3 of Canelo's brothers made their debuts and all of them lost. But Canelo beat Vasquez convincingly that time in the rematch by a unanimous decision over 10 rounds. Now after that, Vasquez put together 13 wins in a row, including becoming the first man to beat Breedis Prescott. That was the guy that knocked out Amir Khan once upon a time. He also was the first man to beat Leonardo Zapovigna, Masito Gesta and Denis Shafikov, who's still a good fighter now, Denis Shafikov. And inside those 13 wins, the win streak that he had, he also won the IBF lightweight title and successfully defended it 6 times before losing to Mickey Bay on a split decision, a Mayweather show, that one. I remember that. Mickey Bay, of course, was with Mayweather at the time. And since then, he's had 6 fights, winning 5 and losing 1 to Argenis Mendez. So this is a catastrophic step up in class here for Josh Taylor. We've asked our listeners for their prediction on this one, and our listeners have gone with Josh Taylor to be the victor, which I feel that he will win the fight as well, but they've gone with him to win by knockout. 52% going with Taylor by knockout, closely followed by 41% Taylor on points. Nobody's gone with Vasquez to win by knockout, but some people went with Vasquez to win on points as well. How do you see that one unfolding, Ayaz? Former world champion Miguel Vasquez and, of course, Josh Taylor.
This is a very tough fight for Josh Taylor, but it's a very good step up as well. Now, I'll tell you one thing. Josh Taylor is a talented fighter. Obviously, Carl Frampton was in his camp before. He's had Conrad Cummings. He's still got he's training with Shane McGuinn. He's still got George Grove in his camp. Let me tell you one thing. Josh Taylor, if you look at him fight, he's been in the amateurs for a very long time. So he's got the amateur pedigree. The previous fight he fought O'Hara Davis, knocked O'Hara Davis out. And I'll tell you one thing now, yeah. I reckon for me it'll be a tough fight, but I reckon Josh Taylor's gonna nick it on points. And I reckon he's gonna fight for a world title shot within 2018.
Yeah, you're probably right. I'm hoping that, if he comes through this fight, which is no given, as we both are aware of, but I'd like to see, hopefully, McGuigan and the team kind of get somebody over here, for maybe a vacant world title. Depends what happens, because as we said, Terence Crawford vacating all the titles, he's really opened up the division, and Josh Taylor's really highly ranked with the WBC. So, yeah, it may come in the new year for him, hopefully on British soil at least. Anyways, the fight itself, I think Josh Taylor will probably win on points, but it's going to be tough, man. I mean, this guy's a good fighter. I don't think he's been stopped either without looking at his record. So yeah, he's a good fighter. Like I say, he shared the ring with Canelo twice and gone points twice. Shared the ring with Tim Bradley, not a big puncher really. Went the distance with him, but no, he's good. He's crafty. He's a veteran. He's a tricky guy. I've seen him fight a few times, but I mean, he's a little. I wouldn't say he's too long in the tooth, but he's been around for quite a while, and I don't know. I think maybe he slipped just a tiny bit, but this is a big step up. It's a great fight. When you actually look at who O'Hara Davies may be fighting next, they're talking about Tommy Coyle. I actually like Tommy Coyle. I think that's quite a fun fight, Tommy Coyle and O'Hara Davies. But Tommy Coyle, you compare him to Miguel Vasquez, it's just leagues apart. So I like what they're doing with Josh Taylor here, and it's going to be a good fight, so I'm definitely going to be tuning into that one. Moving over now to the Metro Radio Arena in Newcastle. What have we got over here? It's the big one. It's actually billed as No ifs, no buts. Of course, that's a bit of a pun from the first fight they had when the fight was ended, Liam Williams and Liam Smith, and it was ended, of course, with a little bit of a... Well, it was ended on a cut that was caused by what some people believe was a headbutt. Some people say it was a punch. Depends who you ask. Let's talk about the undercard firstly, though. Mark Heffron, 17-0, takes on Lewis Taylor, 19-4 with one draw. That's a big step up there for Heffron. I'm looking forward to that. That's an 8-rounder. Also on the bill, Nathan Gorman, 10-0, fights for the vacant WBC International Silver Heavyweight title against Mohamed Saltby, who's 13-0. Nathan Gorman was supposed to be taking on the unbeaten Nick Webb, when I was really looking forward to that fight. Actually, I really like Nick Webb, but Mohamed Saltby stepped in, so I'm not quite sure what's gone on there. But it was supposed to be for the English title, but this title came up, the opportunity was there, and the fight's there now for Gorman, but hopefully Gorman gets the win. Also on the bill, Josh Lever fights for the IBF East and West Europe super lightweight title against Glenn Foote, 21-2. Josh Lever, 12-0. That's a good fight as well. There's some good kind of, I don't want to say trade fights because I think that's a little bit disrespectful, but there's some good fights on the undercard, you know. Some of the guys that aren't really the household names, but there's some good fights on there, some good crossroad fights. Also on the bill, Thomas Patrick Ward, 21-0, fights Sean Davis, 13-1. This is a defence of Ward's British super bantamweight title. That should be quite a good one as well. And the main event, of course, Liam Smith, 25-1 with one draw, fights Liam Williams, 16-1 with one draw. Firstly, the first time that these guys fought, it was a really, really good fight until the headbutt came in, and it all kind of went a bit pear-shaped towards the end of it. You know, nobody was satisfied with a win, even including the Smith brothers and the Smith team, because they didn't want to win that way. But, you know, they got the win, and the first time round it was for the interim WBO 154 world title. Now, of course, Liam Smith didn't make the weight the first time round, so when he won the fight, the title was still vacant. This time round, unfortunately, there's no belt on the line. So it's took a little bit of flavour out the fight, but fortunately, this fight doesn't really need no added flavour. It was a great fight first time round. I'm sure it will be pretty much the same thing second time round. How do you see this fight playing out, by the way, Ayaz? Liam Smith versus Liam Williams, the rematch.
I'm going to go for a Smith win on points.
Smith win on points. Okay, our listeners have gone with, let me just quickly check. Our listeners have gone with Williams to win on points, and I'm gonna agree with that. 43% went with Williams on points. It was very, very close. Some people went with Williams by knockout, some people went with Smith by points, and the least most popular answer was Smith by knockout, which I find quite surprising. But yeah, I think Liam Williams will probably win this on points, but he won't have it all his own way. But you know, as long as he doesn't gas in those later rounds, I think he's got it. But it's a brilliant fight. I'm so pleased it's happening. Moving over now to the Save Mart Arena in Fresno, California. One fight to mention on this bill. This one's going to be shown on Box Nation. 2 fights, actually. 3 fights to mention on this bill. Johnny Garcia, 19-5 with one draw, takes on Amir Imam, 20-1. That should be decent. That's a 10-rounder there. Also on this bill, Jose Carlos Ramirez, 20-0, fights Mike Yes Indeed Reed, 23-0 for the WBC Continental Americas Super Lightweight title. Mike Reed, a friend of the show, I wish him all the best of luck in this one. He didn't look too great in his last fight. Hopefully he can pick up the game a little bit here in this fight. You know, it's a good fight. 2 guys here undefeated. Somebody's must go. 43-0 their combined records, but I don't know too much about Jose Carlos Ramirez, but he's the champion, so tough fight here for Mike Reed. Hopefully he gets the win. Wish him and his father all the best. Also the main event, Artur Beterbiev, 11-0, fights for the vacant IBF World Light Heavyweight title against Enrico Colin, 23-1. This fight, if I'm not mistaken, this one, yeah, the IBF title is for the one of the belts that Andre Ward gave up when he decided to retire a few weeks back. Ayaz, how do you see this fight going, Beterbiev and Colin? We've actually asked our listeners as well, and our listeners believe that Beterbiev will win by knockout. How do you see this fight playing out?
I'm going to go for Beterbiev on points.
Beterbiev on points. Okay, I'm going to go with Beterbiev by knockout. Yeah, let's go a little bit quicker now. We're going to move on from this bill now to the final bill. It's Matchroom USA's launch, if you like, over in the Nassau Coliseum in Uniontown, New York, USA. A lot of people involved in this card, actually. It's going to be on HBO in the USA, on Sky Sports in the UK. There's a few promoters involved in it. Eddie Hearn, Dimitri Salita. There's also Starboxing are involved in it, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, let's talk about the fights on this bill. Firstly, our very own Conor Benn, 9-0 on this bill, takes on Brandon Sanudo, 7-6. That's going to be a 6-rounder there. So all the very best to Conor Benn. Also on the bill, Cletus Seldin, a man I don't know too much about, but I've heard his name thrown around a lot lately. He's supposed to be quite good. He's 20-0. He takes on Roberto Ortiz, who's 35-1 with 2 draws. That's a 10-rounder there. Really excited for that one. Also on the bill, Dirrell Miller, of course, Big Baby Miller, 19-0 with 1 draw, takes on the tough guy Marius Wack, 33-2. That should be a really good heavyweight scrap. And the main event, Daniel Jacobs, 32-2, takes on Luis Arias, 18-0. Obviously, Danny Jacobs got the bigger name there, but Luis Arias, if our listeners listen to the time he was on a couple weeks back, Luis Arias is so confident. Like, he's just so confident that I'm quite scared to pick against him. I mean, firstly, I thought maybe Jacobs has probably got the experience on his side. He definitely has got the experience on his side. But Arias is a man on a mission. And I tell you what, it's a hard task to actually bet against him, because I do like Arias and he's supremely confident. You almost want to believe everything he says. So the 2 fights on this bill, Ayaz, Big Baby Miller versus Marius Wack. How do you see that one? We've asked the listeners as well.
I'm going to go with Miller by points.
Okay, Miller on points. I'm going to go with Miller on points as well, but our listeners have gone with Big Baby Miller to win by knockout. And the main event, how do you see that one?
And
Jacobs
I'm going to go by Jacobs by points as well.
Jacobs on points. Right, I'm going to go with Jacobs by knockout. So have our listeners gone with Jacobs by knockout. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Luis Arias gets the win. He's a friend of the show. I do like Luis Arias. Got a lot of time for him, but it's a hard fight, this one. I'll tell you one thing, I don't really see it going points. I think both men can crack. Arias has been putting people away lately in really, really good fashion. And I tell you what, I'm so pleased for him. I'm so happy that he's getting this big fight. When we spoke, you could just see the way he was talking to me. He was over the moon that he was even fighting in a main event on HBO. Nearly said Showtime then. And if he wins this fight, boy oh boy, all the promoters in the world are going to be trying to sign him. I don't know who he's with at the moment. He's definitely not with a big time promoter. So yeah, all the promoters in the world will be right over him like flies on you know what if he pulls off a win and looks good doing so. But all the very best to Luis Arias, all the very best to Big Baby Miller. We've now flown through the preview and there's nothing else to talk about. We've done all the talking. The last thing to do before we wrap up the show is of course to welcome the second and final guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the trainer of multiple world champions, the guru, Mr. Dave Coldwell. Dave, welcome to the show.
Hey mate, how you doing? Right.
All good, my friend, all good. So, Dave, we last spoke a few months ago. It's always good to check in with you from time to time. The hottest topic with yourself right now was the fight on the weekend. Not the way anybody would have wanted the fight to end. Disappointment for everybody involved. How did you have the fight scored at the time of the stoppage? By the way, I just want to ask.
Well, listen, it was way too early. The problem being is that people are making judgments on the fight as it happened there, but it was a fight that we expected to get off to be very, very hot. We thought Solis had come flying at us, and the tactics were just to keep it long, keep off the ropes, and then when you get a chance, work Solis's body to slow him down, because he's 35 years old. In the first fight, Jamie didn't get going with his body shots until late on, and it still took effect on Solis because the last quarter of the fight, Solis slowed down, Jamie came into it. This time the plan was to make sure that he worked more on the inside, underneath with Solis early doors, so he would tire quicker. And I was happy with how Jamie was performing in the early parts. He didn't go from rope to rope like he did do and stay far too long on the ropes, letting Solis get his attacks off. He was making Solis miss quite a lot of his attacks, which is again another part of what we wanted him to do. Because when you're missing, you tire out. And when you're missing and you're getting caught to the body, you tire out even more. So, it was all going to plan. Just unfortunate that the head clash happened, and the fight was stopped. I was gutted it was stopped. It was we wanted a chance for the corner to work at it because that's why we employ cutmen, and the fight was it was so close to the end of the round. We was screaming at the referee, saying let the fight go on. So we were disappointed.
And I remember hearing you talk about you heard the 10-second clapper, and then you believed that the fight went on for about an extra minute. Have you watched it back at home to reassess?
Yeah, on back home you don't actually hear a clapper. You do at the end. You hear it again because it went twice. I heard a clapper early doors, and so therefore I thought initially there was only 10 seconds to go, and then the doctor let the fight carry on, and it went on, went on and on and on, and then. When the fight was actually stopped, there was only about 10, 14 seconds left. 10 to 14 seconds left. I can't remember what the clock was saying. I can't remember now. But it was coming to the end of the round anyway. But yeah, it is what it is. Listen, there's no point crying over it. We're disappointed. And so was our cutman, Jamie Sheldon. We paid for him to go out there, put him up in Monaco, and he didn't get to do his job. So it is one of them things.
And one thing I do want to touch on, I mean, there's one way of looking at it in probably the most positive light. I think whereas Jamie's getting older himself, obviously we know he struggles to make the bantamweight limit. In a way, if you believe that he got off to a bit of a rocky start, you may not. But in my opinion, I think that in some ways, it's a good thing that he didn't. I don't want to say he was going on to lose, but I'm saying it's a good way that he didn't have to rack up a loss.
How are you deducting that he got off to a rocky start after 2 completed rounds? I mean, even television had him losing the first and winning the second round. The reason why he went to war with him and gambled in that third is because he thought the fight's going to be ended. I'm going to try and stop him now. He wasn't going to do that from round 3 onwards. If you watch the fight, Solis was missing. People seem to have this perception that if you're throwing punches, you're winning the fight. Well, he was missing. And it is what it is. Boxing is a 12-round fight. You may lose the first few rounds if as part of a plan where it's you're making the guy miss, you're making him work, you're making him. But what people forget is he's 35. He also struggles with the weight. Don't forget when he was super flyweight champion, he failed on the scales. He's a fella. He struggles to make the weight as well. Both fighters do. But the fact is that Jamie came on strong in the last fight down the stretch. Everybody saw that. Early doors Solis, second half the fight, Jamie definitely had the better engine, and Jamie has got an engine. But to say he got off to a rocky start, I mean, that's a bit harsh. I mean, look at the first fight. Yes, he was pinned on ropes, and he was on the ropes quite a lot more than what he should have been. But the second fight wasn't. He was moving from space to space.
I don't know, the way I had the first round, I think the first round was very hard to call. I actually gave that a 10-10. I hold my hands up and say that. I thought Solis grabbed the second round. I don't know, all I will say is, we don't know what would happen in the later part, but I'm happy that
being honest, we're not happy because Jamie was absolutely, he was doing everything we wanted to do early doors, and the fight, as far as we were concerned, we was dead happy in that corner at the end of the first and second rounds, and we was just hoping to see, Jamie deliver and perform. That doesn't do us any favours whatsoever,
No, I agree. I mean, the preparation that he would have had to endure outside of the ring to all kind of be for nothing. That is a kick in the nuts. But I'm just glad that he didn't. Like I say, I'm not going to say that he was going to lose. I'm just saying I'm glad he didn't have to kind of find out that this really is it. I need to move up by getting a loss. I'm glad that didn't have to happen. If it would have happened, I don't know. I really hope it wouldn't have. Like I say, we don't know what would have happened in the later rounds. But anyways, he's moving up now, Dave. That's right.
Yeah.
And will that be at Super Bantam?
We're going to see what options there are. He's big enough, and he's got the frame for either Super Bantamweight or featherweight, really. So we'll see what his options are and what the best route is for him.
Yeah, featherweight's a beautiful division domestically, of course. A good win as well. The last month for Gavin, the twin brother. Obviously, he took on Ajtai. Now Ajtai is no world beater, but a first round knockout. Yeah. Some people say Gavin's not a puncher. He looked pretty good.
No, but it is what it is. I mean, that was a fight just to get him back out there. It was a last minute replacement opponent, and that was the best that we could get. The fight that we were preparing for would have been a nice little domestic fight. The kid would have come and really, he fancied it. I saw him doing interviews saying that I was going to beat Gav. So Gav was up for a fight, and then I think it was literally like 2 days that we had notice on this fella. And when I looked at this fella, I thought, an absolute stylistically nightmare. All he does is run, like literally run. So I said to Gavin, go out there and without loading up and forcing things, just go out there, put the pressure on him, and get rid of him as quick as you can. Because otherwise, you're one of these guys that's going to make it look, make it look a stinker. And he did. He went out there and got rid of him, and he did it. He did it looking good. He was picking the right shots, working the body, and put his shots together right at the right time. So yeah, I was happy with him.
Yeah, it pains me how underrated I think the McDonnell brothers are. It's especially, I know Jamie's very underrated.
I think they both are.
Gavin especially, I think lately. I mean, obviously he got the world title shot. He didn't disgrace himself whatsoever. Is there a plan in place, perhaps for next year, for something big for Gavin?
Well, he's going to have a big fight, a meaningful fight, and a meaningful win to get himself back in the world title mix. Because, I'm honest. He was fortunate to. Gavin McDonnell to get a WBC world title shot, that was because he won a belt, a WBC version of a belt, and got a high ranking. So he got up there. But like you say, he's underrated, but he's also overachieved for what for the fights that he's had. Because they're not flash, they're not devastating punches. They get overlooked, these twins. Again, with Jamie, for some reason, it doesn't seem to get. People don't look at the good things that he does. It's they always seem to give the credit to the opponent. It's like what you're saying there. You've never picked up once on the body shots that Jamie landed on Solis, and when you stood there ringside and you've seen Solis wince and he's feeling the body shots, nobody's saying that. They say, "Oh, Jamie," you're saying Jamie had a rocky start to his fight. Again, it's Jamie being overlooked for the work that he does. It's just how people are, and. The thing is, I think he's accepted that, and it's frustrating. But some fighters can look crap for 6 rounds, pull off one good shot, and everybody raves over them. Other fighters, they might not be bangers, but they do good things throughout the fight, and they get overlooked. So it is what it is.
And I want to ask you about the 2 heavyweight encounters that we've seen, within the space of 7 days. Obviously, it's funny what I'm seeing online. I mean, obviously Anthony Joshua didn't really look his best, and then Deontay Wilder looked $1 million against, an out-of-shape Stavern. Now everybody thinks it's a 50-50 fight. How do you assess those 2 performances, and how would you see...
It is a 50-50 fight. It's without doubt, it's a flip of a coin. Deontay Wilder can punch. And it's not just one fight that's showing he can punch. He can punch. We've always known he can punch. People made a big deal about his weight. I mean, why? Wilder's never been a heavyweight. Yes, he's a tall heavyweight, a long heavyweight, but he's never been a heavyweight. So what if he weighs 15 stone 10? The man can punch. The funny thing is I found that as they've tried to get him to box more, his performances weren't as great. On Saturday, it just seems to go back to the old Wilder, where he just come out swinging. And although it doesn't look great technically, it is very, very effective for him, and it is absolutely devastating for his opponents. Stavern came in like a fat pudding, and he was disgusting. Here's a man that he's lucky to be getting another shot. He gets another shot for a WBC world title, and he comes in far worse shape than in the original one. He got what he deserved, if you ask me. There's no way he deserved to become heavyweight champion again. And I'm glad that Wilder went out and made a statement. And it was a statement. Getting rid of him in a round was a statement. Wilder was fantastic. AJ against Takam was a completely different fight. Before the fight, I got absolutely ripped on social media because I was saying I could see Takam going 7-9 rounds because I think he's tough. He knows how to block and ride shots, and he puts in good work. Everyone's saying, "Oh, you're just saying it to build pay-per-views. Oh, you're this, you're that." No, it's my opinion because it's an opinion formed on me watching Takam before in the past. I've seen Takam. I know what he's about. And when you're in there with a guy that is shorter than you, and you're not comfortable with punching downwards, but the guy knows how to block and ride shots. If a fighter knows how to block and ride shots, it can become very frustrating to fight because you're not quite landing, you're exerting. I thought AJ did a lot of good things in that fight. Yes, it wasn't the most explosive, but I thought he did a lot of good things in there. Takam is tough, but people have this thing where they think AJ is a massive one-punch knockout man. No, he's not. He's very fast and he's an accumulative sort of puncher. I think he's the kind of guy that breaks you down with his combinations, with his work rate, with the volume of his punches that land. When you're riding and blocking a lot of shots, you're taking a lot of that accumulative effect away from you because you're not getting nailed every shot. And so the single shots that AJ was landing, although like rocking him or knocking him off balance, Takam was able to take because he wasn't taking 3-4 shots at a time. And that's why it was always going to be a tough fight for him. Should it have been stopped? Not a chance. I don't think it should have been stopped. But AJ answered that himself in the ring where he said, I'm not in control of the referee, and that is right in saying so. But it was always going to be for me a longer fight, and it's a good education for him. What you've got to remember is when you're looking at these two fighters, you got to think Anthony Joshua's had 20 fights. And he's already made a couple of defences of his world title. He's already beaten a Klitschko. Deontay Wilder, he's at about 40 fights. I don't know what his exact record is. It might be 38, something like that. But he's had a hell of a lot more fights. And when you look at his record, look at him at the both stages of their career. Who was Deontay Wilder fighting after 20 fights? Then you look at it in perspective. AJ's still learning. Wilder should be at his peak. I think, without a shadow of a doubt, I think the Wilder fight is just a flip of a coin. I don't know who wins that one. I would say Deontay Wilder, for me, right at this stage, could possibly be the favourite because if he starts like that and if he catches Joshua in a whirlwind, then it's going to be a very, very dangerous fight. But if AJ can nullify the wild swings and pick the spots, then Joshua's got the upper hand. But it's a fight that I think's got to happen. I'd like it to happen next summer. I'd like, if possible, Joshua to get the WBO belt off of Parker first, and then for it to be for every belt out there. That'd be something special.
Yeah, I just think the recent two performances from both guys, I think it's kind of shook up a lot of people's opinions. I was saying it was a 50-50 fight for a long time, but I think when you look at Deontay Wilder, as you said there, he's got a lot more fights. I think he's had 39 now against 38 different guys. His best opponent's Stavern, and when you put it up against Joshua, his best opponent obviously would have to be Klitschko. You've got Dillian White in the mix, Brazil there, but we actually spoke to Eric Molina on last week's show, and he's one of the few guys that shared the ring with both. He firmly believes that Deontay Wilder would stop Anthony Joshua, which I was quite shocked about, but the opinions are certainly divided. Right, the rematch is set, of course, for Sunday the 17th of September. It's funny to see people not giving Bellew a chance yet again. He's an underdog yet again. It just shocks me, some of the things I read online. Are we expecting a similar kind of fight to the first one, Dave? Obviously, injury aside.
Well, I think it'll be a bit different, to be honest. I think you'll have two different fighters in there. Definitely two fitter, faster, sharper fighters. I think Haye will not be as reckless. I think he'll be more calculated in what he's doing. He'll look to set up his bombs. He'll look to make Tony make mistakes and look to punish him with super fast blitzing power punches. A bit like the old David Haye. I think that's what he'll be hoping to go back to. But unfortunately for him, in Tony Bellew is fighting a very, very underrated boxing brain. Bellew's better than what you think. Everybody says that when they get in the ring with him. He is better than what you think. And that's ultimately that's what we're looking at, and that's what's going to happen. It's going to be. I think when it goes, it's going to be exciting. I really do. There's going to be a lot of thinking in there, but when it goes, it's going to go.
And another thing I do want to touch on, again, a lot of people are kind of expecting David Haye to come in lighter this time round. It's been a long time since he's been that light. Since his return, he's been quite bulky. Which version of David Haye do you believe is more of a threat to Bellew? A slimmer and more lean David Haye, or the bulked up guy?
I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, we said that for the last fight, we expected him to come in light. The lighter Haye is, the more dangerous he is. You go back to his earlier part of his career, when he fought the likes of Ruiz and people like that, when he was at heavyweight, when he's a bit heavy, he's just a bit sluggish. He was never at his best when he's heavy. So the lighter he is, the better he is. The lighter he is, the more dangerous he is. And that's why we're expecting a very, very dangerous fight. And
do you want to give us any kind of prediction for that fight at all?
Yeah, we win. It's same as what I said last time. We win. Simple as that. We're not bothered about the Twitter hate and the social media craziness that's out there, where people just like to be violent, and everybody's got opinions. We're all entitled to opinions, but a lot of people like to be 10 men on social media and stream out abuse when giving opinions. There's no need for abuse. You think one man's going to win, you think the other one's going to win. But, these people seem to think that they all know David Haye personally and the best pals with him. And it gives them a right to be so abusive and take it to heart that you might even have the cheek and the audacity to think that you might win. They seem to take it so personally. But yet, they've never even met him. They've probably been in the same room with him. So, yeah, it's strange how some people carry off on social media, We're just there to do a job. We're not really interested in anything else. We'll go in there and we'll prepare to the best of his abilities like we did last time, and then Tony will go in there and perform to the best of his ability like last time, and then at the end of it, when it's all said and done, he'll be a winner like last time.
Yeah, social media gives nobody's a platform to be somebody's. That's what I say about it anyway. What actually really surprised me, I want to say, like Tony Bellew last time really seemed to improve with his head movement. I think sometimes people could criticise him perhaps for not moving his head too much. His head movements really come on a lot. Yeah,
it's something that works on. It's like any fighter out there can improve if they put the work into it. And Bellew's no different to anybody else. Contrary to what some people think, crap fighters don't win world titles. Crap fighters don't get to the top. You might think they're crap, but they're not really crap.
Yeah, no, fair enough. No, it's true. I want to ask you this as well. Obviously, David Haye was out for a while with his injury, and there was talks of Bellew perhaps having a fight in the meantime. Now, if he was to have fought a full-blown heavyweight, again, I don't know what would have happened, but he'd have been an underdog for sure. Was there ever like an attractive offer on the table? Because I feel like David Haye, I know it's a big money fight for both guys, but I feel like David Haye very much needed Bellew more than Bellew needed him, so to speak.
Yeah, there were other options there. There were other options that we were looking at, but ultimately it was down to the fact that everybody thought that it was a fluke, which makes me laugh when David Haye is banking on Tony not having the motivation and what's his desire like for this fight. His desire's the same as last time, and in fact more so because he's, peeved that people just, again, writ him off and said that it's a fluke. That's it. So, it's all right. Please God, it's a fit David Haye, a fully healthy David Haye, and I'm going to beat a fully fit David Haye, and then what are they going to say? And they'll probably just say the same thing. You know, there's always a reason why David Haye gets beat. You know, people that love him will not accept that he can get beat, and that's what will happen again on December 17th. He'll get beat, and then people will say that, you know, Bellew got lucky for some reason. It'll be, he's lucky that he didn't fight him back in the day, whatever. Well, yeah, it is what it is. We're not really interested in what people's opinions are about it, to be honest. We've just got a job to do. It's just another fight, and that's what it is. And that's why Tony wanted this fight to put it to bed. You know, the monsters of the division they're too big. It's just not realistic. You know, he's not an heavyweight, so he's not going to be fighting your Wilders and your Furies and your AJs and people like that. They're giants. So yeah, David Haye, although he punches like one, he's not a monster heavyweight.
And I want to throw this juicy fight at you now, Dave. World Boxing Super Series semi-final contest. Chris Eubank Jr., George Groves. Beautiful fight. Yeah. How do you see that one playing out?
It's a great fight. It's a great fight. I can't wait to see it. In fact, I think I'm going to go to that one.
Depends where it is. They haven't announced it yet, have they?
No, they haven't. But it's got to be over here somewhere.
Yeah,
it's got to be. It makes sense. I don't know. You know, I just after seeing Groves' last fight, I just think he's easier to tag, and he's easier to close down now. And if he is, then I can see Eubank getting on top of him. And although he's not a destructive puncher, he's physically strong. He punches very fast, and he does punch hard. Not knockout merchant hard, but he punches hard. And I see the intensity tiring Groves out a lot. And you know, I could see Eubank winning this. I mean, I hope I'm wrong, because you know I'm not Eubank's biggest fan outside the ring, but I respect and admire his work ethic. I think he's as far as, you know, telling your kids to have some sort of ethic of you know, and discipline in the gym, he's right up there, because he works hard, and I can never begrudge a man that works hard. I can never begrudge their success, regardless of what you think of how they are personality-wise and stuff like that. I'm not his biggest fan, but I respect what he does. And you know, I'd like George to win the fight, but I just look at them both at the stage of their careers. The energy of I think the energy of Eubank compared to the energy of Groves, I think Eubank wins it. Even the Groves jab doesn't seem as great as or as effective as what it once was. You know, the Cox fight for me, I just thought, well, Chudenov got right on top of him, Cox got right on top of him. I think Eubank does as well. And although Eubank's not as, you know, he's not as big as Groves, I just think that he's got an innate toughness about him, where he can grit it out and grind out a win. I'm not saying he can. When I say, you know, I can see him walking through Groves, I don't mean he can give Groves free shots and take everything that Groves has to throw, because George Groves got a great right hand. I'm not saying he can take everything that lands, but I just think he'll block and ride enough to get his own shots off. And when Groves is the one under pressure, he's the one that tends to get ragged. So that's why I'm leaning towards Eubank more. But again, like I said, you know, I'm a complete neutral in it. I don't, you know, I'm indifferent to who wins. I don't really care who wins as such. But I would rather George Groves win for myself. You know, I'm because of history and what have you. I would like Groves to win. It don't make any difference to my life. But if you ask me who do I want to win, yeah, it's Groves. Who do I think will win? Nah, it's Eubank.
Yeah, it's one of those fights. It's very hard to call, you know. It's certainly going to be one worth watching. Any other fights that you want to give your opinion on at all before we let you go, Dave?
No, not really. You call me, mate. Whatever you want me to talk about, that's not a problem.
I can't really think of any off the top of my head, to be completely honest.
I'll tell you what I am looking forward to. I'm looking forward to Liam Smith and Liam Williams.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, Liam Smith and Liam Williams this weekend. I'm looking forward to that.
How do you see that one
going? Do you know what? I got a feeling Liam Smith took him lightly last time round. And I think Williams boxed really, really well. But I do think that Smith had got to him and the tide was changing. I kind of think Smith's going to make a faster start this time, and then it's all about how Williams can cope with that, really. Can he keep his boxing together under more intense pressure for longer? I'm not so sure. I think Smith beats him this time again. Well, Smith beats him again, should I say.
Yeah, nice. It's another really thrilling fight. I don't know. I'm a big believer in Liam Williams. I know he's only had a handful of fights, but I think he's good.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he's not capable of winning. I think that he's got to. I think he's just got to show that when things are going against him, he's got to be able to turn it around. It just seemed as though everything was going his way, and then it flipped a little bit. Smith started putting that pressure on him and getting to him, and there seemed to be a visible change quite drastically in that towards the end of that fight. And then obviously he got cut, and then he was just it was pulled out. And I don't know. I've got the feel. I don't know. I might be wrong. It's one of those great fights where you just don't know. There's a case there that I've made that thinks Williams will grow from that fight. Know that he had the beating of Smith, and just make the adjustments and tough it out down the stretch this time. But I don't know. It is a genuine 50-50 fight. I'm leaning towards Smith, but I'm not convinced.
Yeah, I don't think anybody is. There's so many good fights on right now. It's a great time to be a boxing fan. Anything that you want to say at all just before we let you go, Dave?
No, just same as usual. Appreciate all the fan support. There's a lot of fans, a lot of positivity out there, and I respect that, and I appreciate it for myself and all my fighters and what we do. We're just out there, trying our best, whether you agree with us or not. We're just trying our best, and that's all we can do.
Absolutely. Okay, listen, Dave, it's always a pleasure catching up with you. You know that, my friend. Best of luck with everything. Say hello to everybody in the gym for me, please, and we'll catch up very soon.
Cheers, mate. See you later.
Okay, and that wraps up episode 108 of the BoxHard Podcast. A big thank you to our two guests on this week's show, the Mama's Boy Denis Douglin and the Guru Dave Coldwell. The listeners are ahead in the prediction league by 1 point, and there are, of course, another 5 points up for grabs this weekend. The winner of the BoxHard Podcast t-shirt competition from last week's show is at Valley Legend. Look out for more competitions coming soon. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Ayaz Sumra has been Ayaz Sumra. We hope that you've enjoyed this weekly boxing podcast. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.